Hey guys, Craig, Crafty from Craftworks Distillery, and Luke and Todd. We're Aussie Craft Distillers shooting the shit, and we're going to have some fun tonight because we are talking to. Thank you very much for the t-shirt, by the way. We're talking to.
Pity about the model.
Pretty about the model, but Waiheke Whisky from across the ditch in NZ, and
from a really shit part of New Zealand too.
From a place I spent my teenage holidays, because I'm originally a Kiwi, and Waiheke Island and Onotangi was the Onotangi pub. Had many good time in the Onotangi pub, so I may be pronouncing it wrong for all I know too. Anyway. I'm rambling. So we've got Mark and Ro, founders of Waiheke Whisky. How are you guys?
Good. How you going, man?
Yeah, good. And it's what time is it over there?
Onotangi is perfect. Sorry?
Onotangi. Yeah, I pronounced it right.
Onotangi is perfect pronunciation. Exactly right.
Good, excellent.
About 5-minute jog from where we are.
So
Right.
that,
5-minute
jog
from where they are.
oh right, okay. The pub.
Who would jog though? I mean, that's just way too
Not us.
much exercise.
So 15-minute crawl.
Or what, a 20-minute
Jog there
stumble,
and then stumble back. Yeah.
30-minute stumble.
Yeah, I haven't seen it.
That's more my measurement.
Anyway,
All right.
let's rip into it because we've got a lot to talk about and see. Definitely got some things to see. But what we do first, as a bit of a ceremony, is we drink, don't we? We drink. We say what we drink.
That's literally why we're here.
That's why we're here. That's
The
why
primary reason is to drink, and we happen to have guests while we do so.
and we shoot the shit.
And we shoot the shit. Hello to everybody who's joining us. What are we drinking first? Let's start with you guys. Mark and Ro, what's in your glass tonight?
I've got the Waiheke Whisky Moss Batch 2 with extra peat. So that's what I'm drinking. A
Very
five-year-old 100% bourbon cask, which I think you fellas may have some in your tasting pack there. We've got Moss 1 and Moss 2.
Packs, these guys generously sent us a couple of packs to try tonight. So that's what we're going to be.
Absolutely.
So thank you very much for that. As when I asked for a little sample, this is the size I was expecting. So we're very blessed. Thank you.
So you've got the Moss.
We're drinking the Moss at the moment. Yeah. So the Moss was our first release when we released.
Is that the one that we drink first?
Let's do it.
Out of this kit.
Yeah, so do you reckon we start with the Moss from our end, or because we've got let's just have a look at what we've got in the pack. There's the Sweetwater, the Ceres one, Moss, and Peat and Port. Of those four, where should we start, do you think?
Well, do you want to start peated or non-peated? There's only one non-peated in there, which is the Sweetwater.
Let's start with the Sweetwater.
Let's do that. I'll grab some too.
Go from there.
So Sweetwater. Sweetwater's French oak. So we'll have a little drink here and then we can talk about it.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Absolutely. So you've been going for, just while we're pouring, you said this is so the Moss is a 5-year-old.
Yeah.
But you've been going for 10 years.
10 years plus, yeah.
10 years plus, which by Australian terms makes you ancient.
Yeah, we're ancient, we're old.
Cheers.
Cheers.
I'm on the waters.
Rosie's on the water. She's driving the wagon.
You don't live on site?
Thanks very much, guys, for inviting us on, is the first thing to say. Cheers, appreciate it. It's a bit later for us. It's more appropriate. What time is it for you?
It's 7 p.m.
Oh, not too bad. Yeah, not for us. Yeah, perfect.
Definitely appropriate whiskey time. Absolutely. So you've been around for 10 years or 10 years plus.
2010 we started. So that's more like 13 years. 2010 we started.
Wow. And before that, it was just a hobby.
Yeah, correct. So 2008, we actually started hobby distilling. 2010, we started making whiskey. And then we got really serious about it. I don't know, what do you think? Really serious about it 10 years ago, where we got some big stills, got up to build our bigger stills, which we've just replaced now 10 years later. So we built about a 1,600 litre wash and 1,000 litre spirit were our big stills up till our new stuff now. So all the whiskey that we're going to drink today was built on stills we built ourselves 10 years ago.
But having said that, we were still hobby in terms of the frequency of the distillation. So we weren't. Patrick Newton, who's our head distiller, he was at the time still head winemaker at Mudbrick Vineyard here on the island, and so he was distilling outside of vintage and basically when he could. So the volume of the stills were much bigger, but we weren't even doing a barrel a week at that point.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah,
right.
It was just because it was all hand mashed. We're making all our own wash and doing it, but it was just for fun. It was great fun. On the weekends, we'd come down and mash in and make a wash and ferment it over the week, and then distill it and try all sorts of different stuff. Very experimental phase for us.
Also, we had no idea. Like, we were in a vacuum, and we didn't really know that you could kind of do shortcuts. It wasn't until we went to Tasmania that we realised that lots of distilleries don't make their own wash. They're not milling and mashing, doing all that stuff. So it was a lot slower. It was literally shoveling in. I mean, we had the gear made, and then it was like shoveling out. And, pretty manual.
Yeah, we know how you feel.
Yeah. So it's in New Zealand, it is legal for you to run a still without a license.
Correct.
Isn't it? You can have your own hobby still at home, make your own spirit, and not get in trouble with the ATO or the coppers.
Which is exactly how we started. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So what sort of still were you running at that point as a hobby?
We started off fermenting. Actually, my business partner, we started as a beekeeper. So we had a lot of this sugar left over from the honey frames where we were washing them down. And so we started fermenting that, making a mead, and then distilling that. So we actually started off by making a sort of honey rummy sort of, I don't know what you call it. And then we started distilling some local hopped beer from a brewery on the island. So, and that was just in a little 50 litre stainless steel pot with a little top on top, and the sort of thing that it's got a little heating electric element in it. It's only 50 litres, and that's kind of how we started, just as a hobby, really. And then we started to get our own grain and just very, very small quantities, and make a wash and play around with it. We made gin, do what everyone did, made gin, made vodka, made all sorts of stuff, anything we could get our hands on, really. But the goal was to make whiskey, and without a proper copper pot still, really. I mean, it didn't really seem to, wasn't going to happen for us. That's why we made that decision to build our first still. So it was a transition from that hobbyist little tiny weeny thing to wanting to do something, and it was all done for fun. There was never ever a thought of commercializing it at that stage. So it was really just total geekery, geeking out on every single aspect, buying all the books we could, looking at all the different ideas of what we could do. And we were a bit ahead of the curve. 2008, 2009, it wasn't not many people doing much back then. So, we had to literally build a still, which was our first geodesic still we built, Vitriol 1.
It's another whole episode.
Anyway, are we tasting this? Are we drinking this?
Well, I've already finished mine because I loved it.
Yeah, very easy drinking, I must say.
This is French oak.
It.
Yeah, no, I polished that off way too quickly. Let me open up the thing, see if I've finished it. So your tasting notes say that we've got obviously pale gold, floral aromas of jasmine, honey, licorice, and vanilla bean. Toffee up front, allspice, stewed fruit with a long and lingering with spice, sweet fruit, and a teasing hint of smoke. Is that by osmosis?
Yeah.
Or
I think I'm reading the notes, but
Brilliant. That sounds.
no, was
to
that the
me-
sweet water?
no,
is
that
it-
sounds like moth.
You're reading Sweetwater there. Which one are you reading?
Oh, fuck up. Have I got it? No, I thought I was
Sweetwater. So we're drinking
sweet water.
Yeah.
Point
Hold
show,
on,
how many
which one?
wine?
Oh, you can't see
I
shit.
haven't got my glasses here.
I'll get my.
Where are we?
My glasses.
That's a good thing.
Anyway, it is
Good thing you
absolutely
do.
delicious.
Mm.
Very,
Non-peated
very
cinnamon.
aromatic.
Yeah, and it's
I
French
thought I-
oak. So I mean, this is quite a different thing for us, which is a Paddy's being a winemaker. When we made this whiskey, he was experimenting with French oak.
Right.
He's the sort of guy that goes to whiskey tastings and talks about bouquets and things. He's very, very wine orientated, and so this is a very delicate whiskey that's been finished in French oak barrels, which is quite hard to do without getting it too tannic. You want to get those sweet notes out there, a little bit of black pepper finish, bit of spice without getting too dry. And French oak's been quite tricky to gain that balance right for us. So we did a bit of our own STR, take the heads off, grind them down with an angle grinder, and then rechar. And a lot of experimentation around them to get to something like this, which is a whiskey which is our non-peat breakfast whiskey.
Are you going to take that one too?
I'm getting some lovely tropical notes off of it as well. It is
I'm going to read off the website because I can read that better in
Yeah.
my dark man cave. So we got, oh, there we go. And I'm going to open up the other one just so that I can actually taste it again. I won't pour all of it, I promise. Okay. So you've won a couple of awards.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just writing a well, very coincidentally, we've got some whiskey arriving in Australia. Well, I think it arrived today, and it's being unloaded tomorrow. And so I've been writing a little bit about that, and yeah, I was just
And that would have come by slow boat to Australia too, wouldn't it?
And last year we picked up 10 medals in the two big competitions, including best in class, which was pretty exciting. So yeah.
Well done.
So what am I getting on the nose? Is that like almost like marzipan or?
Yeah, definitely marzipan. I mean, it's got a. I mean, for me,
typically, as from every other whiskey that I've had where I've noticed marzipan, I haven't liked it. But that one I polished off without even thinking about it.
Don't know.
And then because it's just so good,
Thank you.
No, that was a good start. That one.
Yeah, that was a fantastic start. So how old is that?
That's 5 years
years.
old.
So
Yeah,
5
so-
years using the New Zealand ale malt.
Yeah, it's full format cask. So that's matured in full size. So initially in 200s, then 220 barriques. So it's in. So they're reused wine casks, STI wine casks. And yeah, it's for us. It's actually quite atypical for the whiskies that we make. In as much that it's quite a light, gentle, very, very non-peated. I mean, there's almost nothing in there at all, and very much a breakfast whiskey, 42%. And we released this as the sister to the Moss, which is the peated version, really at the same time, just so that we weren't necessarily pigeonholed into just a peated distillery, even though we're about 80% peated.
So it's 42% non-chill filtered as well. So
correct.
That's a bit of it.
Nothing's chill filtered. We don't, and you know, it says on the label, you know, might go a bit cloudy if you add water.
It hasn't so far.
Hasn't been too bad. Yeah, we've used these special room temperature filter pads. There's quite a lot of research coming out of Scotland at the moment on non-chill filtering at room temperature, essentially using different filter media. And so on this particular whiskey, we used a special filter pad, came out of Scotland, and it did a great job. Typically, we just use a 100 micron filter, but this helped get a little bit of the haze out. But it's unashamedly, you know, non-chill filtered and trying to keep as much of that flavor as we can.
Well, yeah, for me, that's a absolute winner. I would quite happily polish off a very large few glasses of that in a heartbeat.
It's definitely the one when people walk in here and they don't know what to buy.
You could put that in front of a whiskey novice and go,
it's
I reckon you'll enjoy that. It's not going to blow their brains out with alcohol. It's not too far on the peppery side that I would normally expect from a French oak. And the marzipan isn't too sickly sweet, so it's very well, but lovely balance. Really, really nice.
You say you could serve it to a novice, you could serve it to a seasoned whiskey drinker,
and they'd be
well at home with it. Absolutely,
I reckon in a blind tasting, that would stand up against Scotch whiskey quite well.
And that's at $159
New Zealand.
A bottle, New Zealand price point, which is
correct.
What, Australian dollars, $130.
6% off.
Right. So maybe 145 ish.
Pretty good price for a full bottle.
700 mils.
For 700 mil. That's that's impressive in its own right.
It was actually even a bit cheaper, but we've had to kind of look reality in the face, which is with the stock that we've got now, we really don't want to run out. We've built this pretty substantial visitor centre and restaurant, tasting room. You know, it's set on 5 acres here. We'll give you on a little tour, but you can also Google Waiheke, which is the name of the property, which is just short for Waiheke, and you can kind of get a look at what we've got here. And so we really didn't want to run out, but we probably will anyway. So we just edged the price up a little bit, understanding that we'll, like for here, you know, we still get a lot of people saying that I could buy a XXX for that, and we kind of have to just understand that we might sell a little bit less, but hopefully it lasts a little bit longer until this new whiskey's of age.
Plus, you've also got amazing packaging. So you've brought the box out there. I mean, the packaging alone looks pretty bloody high end.
This is all recycled cardboard and screen print. So the idea is that it and our stills we'll see when we go and visit them are geodesic. So very lightweight screen print cardboard box. And so for our first releases, we wanted to obviously give people a little bit of something fun. So there's lots of Easter eggs in here. The geodesic punt on the bottom of the bottle, so the spoke bottle, screw cap, recycled PTFE. We went screw cap, not cork. Recycled label. It's also light. It's also one of the lightest bottles that you'll find on the market. So we went for as lightweight again, just for shipping and. It's about 401 grams, so empty. So if we're shipping it around the world, we want to try and keep the footprint down as much as we can. And a little bit of recycled glass in there as well. So the bottle was, and these things, when you not, because we were going for a long time not selling whiskey, so I had a lot of time to think about it. So there's been quite a few iterations of this guy, but there she is, Sweetwater. So that was release number 2, and you've got Sweetwater batch 2. So we sold out of all of batch 1. So this is Sweetwater batch 2 you've got in your tasting pack. And we do have some non-peat whiskies, but that's one of them. Our Dyad Chardonnay finish, 7-year-old mud brick Dyad Chardonnay finish is another, which we could talk about later. And our Cantankerous that won Best World Whiskey this year, which is 8 years old last year, sorry, 2000. So that's a Muscat, Australian Muscat. We try to use as many Australian fortified wine barrels as we could to try and keep the air miles down as well, rather than shipping. Yeah. It's very hard for us to get quality casks over here.
Fortified
wine. Yeah, casks, so tricky. But we use Jack Daniels for our bourbon, even though it's not bourbon, bourbon casks. So this started off Life and Jack, and then went into the STR French Oak.
Yeah, right. So when you going back to when you started, you're playing around, you're getting obsessive about it and wanting to experiment and learn everything and try everything. How did the decision come to go to scale from just pottering around in your shed and doing it yourself to then deciding, right, fuck it, we're gonna make it a business? What tipped you over the edge into madness?
I mean, that decision, even then it was probably a stepwise. Like, that decision didn't really happen until probably 4 years ago. So we still didn't have, like, I think we still didn't see the whole world and our whiskey competing, and standing up against whiskies around the world. And we're both perfectionists, I would say. So we didn't want to do something that wasn't amazing. So the still that we made ourselves, I think we still thought that we would sell it locally. And, it's as you know, it's quite a ballsy thing to do. Like, you put the stuff in, in barrel, and sometimes, some nights I'd wake up and go, all our money's going into this, like, outside of this kids' school fees and all of that stuff, the dog food, what if it's rubbish? Like,
that's it. You've got to really back yourself to think, we're good enough to go to the next step.
Yeah, and we had faith in Patrick. Like, Patrick is not just a winemaker. He's won New Zealand Winemaker of the Year. He's an incredibly talented guy, and we had a lot of faith in him, I think. And then I guess we just started backing ourselves. Like, it started tasting really good. People that we weren't paying to tell us it tasted good would say, like, we'd get some guys, some guy would come in from Scotland and we'd go, would sheepishly go, we're making this, and he'd go, fuck, that's good, that kind of reaction. And then we thought, okay, well, we love this island, and we were still kind of working in Auckland, and we thought, well, if we can make something work here that we can bring our life and our livelihoods over here, then that's pretty cool.
Yeah. And then we entered San Francisco 2018 with one of our 5-year-olds in the open category, and just didn't even have a label or a name.
We didn't have a bottle. We didn't have it. We called it Izzard because that's our last name, and we had no brand. Like, we just put it in like a little old medicine bottle and shipped it off.
Yeah, we got a silver for it. So we were like, okay,
oh wow,
here we go. So so that's kind of where that was really the turning point for us, I think. And then we thought, let's really go for it, which was then obviously planning, how big's our production going to be, what size stills do we need, what sort of facility do we need. And on the island, we've have to have a bore for water. Everything's brought onto the island. We're like Isla, so every barrel, every piece of grain, everything that we need needs to come to the island. So then it was
there's no septics here. There's no sewage system here. There's no water system here on the island. So you have to be self-sufficient in all of that.
Wow.
Adds another layer.
So then it was planning. So, okay, we'll continue making whiskey in our current setup as much as we can, and then plan for this new distillery, which we commissioned in November last year. So that's when we've really turned the taps on, and now we're producing anywhere up to 3 barrels a day. But at the moment we're on 1.5. We're running at half speed casks a day. So around about 200, just a little bit over 200 Ola a day out of here at the moment, which we can get up to, without running 24 hours, we can get up to about 400 Ola a day.
Wow.
Which is quite a lot of whiskey. But then, of course, we've got to sell it. So, and every dollar you put in here, you've got to back yourselves. We've got to store it. We've got to, so there's a lot of logistics. And so we've just been working through all of that over the last 4 years, and then built this thing, which we'll give you a little tour on after we've had another whiskey.
So I've poured out, and it's just been sitting there for a little bit. The moss.
Yeah.
Because you mentioned that the moss is sort of
you might have been sitting on it.
You've almost finished yours?
It's fantastic.
So moss this is our first release, and this is the story. The story is New Zealand peat. I mean, that's what we're about. So let's have a little smell and a taste, and we can talk about it.
Mm.
So you said this was your first release, am I right?
Yeah, it's 01 on the box. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Wow.
It's well balanced.
Yeah, that's
got some nice spices in there.
Is it Alpha? It's definitely my favorite. Is it your favorite?
Well, nearly my favorite. But it's
I keep trying to change favorites, but it's like when you go to the your favorite takeaway and you're like too scared to swap. You just have to stick with it.
We've said it to other distillers. It's a big thing to assume that your first release is going to be your best release, but this is an outstanding first release, isn't it?
Yeah.
Thank you. It was New Zealand peat. I think have you got an adventures tasting pack there? Another different type of tasting pack there?
No, I think we've got 2 golden oldies, I think.
2 golden oldies, okay. Cool.
Yeah, which was good because I needed extra of the sweet water. And I'm going to probably need extra of this too.
So the moss is our first foray into New Zealand peat to release to the market. It's lightly peated, so we're around about 20.
Is that sourced from the South Island, or?
It's from Invercargill. So there's only one independent maltster in New Zealand producing proper wet malted peat the traditional way. So instead of taking malting barley, then wetting it, trying to smoke it, malt goes in the green malt stage. The peat goes in the green malt stage, gets properly kilned, and that's Gladfields, and they make a fantastic. All their malts just brilliant. I mean, everything they make, the distiller's malt that we made the sweet water out of, and so everything they make is good. Their yields are high. We're getting around about 420 Ola a ton, which is really, really good. And then this peat is completely different, I guess, than what you'd be used to.
You are correct. The fastest Indian is from Invercargill.
Right, there you go.
That's correct. We're not in Invercargill, but that's where the peat is. Yeah.
Yeah. And Mick Sheard says that his first release was crap.
I'm sure they're getting better since then.
Well, you'd hope so.
He's proud to say that.
It's a badge of honour.
Yeah.
When your first one's crap, there's only one way to go.
That's it. Can only get more crap.
Yeah, well.
What he forgot to mention though is the name of his whiskey was Crap.
Right.
That was the brand.
That was okay. There we go.
That's the sort of thing Mick would do. Yeah. How many? You mentioned ppm. How many ppm on this? Did you say, Mark?
It's measured. I mean, it's measured at 25 ppm. But we in this particular release, we're probably more like at about 20. So it's still. Sorry. Oh, we've got Moss 2. Sorry, we're back up. Yeah, we're 25 ppm. Our very first release, Moss 1, batch 1 was about 20, and this is 25. It's a little bit peatier.
Yeah.
And we're up at 44% alcohol.
Lovely and oily. I don't know whether that's translating to the camera there. Probably not, but yeah, lovely and oily. Very smooth. Just slips down very, very easily.
So you get yourself in trouble with this one.
The peat really adds some structure to the whiskey, doesn't it?
Mm.
It's not like it's not just boom, here's peat. It's there as holding other elements together.
The sweetness, the floral,
Sweet peat.
the floral jasmine is interesting. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
the jasmine's really a dominant note initially, and then you end up with a spicy, almost salty. The peat we'll see. I mean, the peat's completely different than Isla peat. If you want to talk about it for a couple of minutes,
It's like peat without the band-aids, as I say.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, when you look at the British deciduous forests and stuff that went into making their peat, the flora and fauna, this is completely different. Most of our trees are podocarps, like yours are eucalypts, manuka, rush sedges, very oily resinous plants that don't necessarily rot so well. They're very low in lignin. They're very lignin poor. So you're not getting that massive smoke hit that you're kind of used to. You're getting that oily, resinous, herbaceous, almost mushroomy kind of foresty floor flavors. And we'll see that in peat and port a bit later, which is upping the ppm. And the peat comes on at the back end. It doesn't hit you at the front face. You kind of get the peat finish. And all of this stuff, I mean, no one had ever really made New Zealand peated whiskey before. No one had ever put them in different barrels and sussed out what they do. And so, a lot of those early days with this is our second release of this, was really experimentation around, what are our cuts going to be? How far can we push the tails out? We ended up pushing out the tails further and further and further to try and get more and more peat until we got into, rubber bands and burnt car tires and stuff, and then pull it back a bit. And then of course, what does it do in the different casks? How does it work in bourbon? How does it work in sherry? How does it work in French oak? And so we sussed out it works pretty well in bourbon. So this is 100% bourbon maturation, 5 years old. But pretty, I mean, when we talk about aging, it's also very high temperature. We can talk about that later, high temperature and high humidity.
Yeah, right. So what's the average temperature that you're getting on the island?
I mean, in the barrel room, it averages around about 20. Won't drop below 10 degrees centigrade. Up to 35 at the top of the barrel stack. Yeah. It's there's a lot of angel share and a lot of rapid maturation. Stuff takes on color very fast. So I mean, our stuff that's in these new bourbon casks now, the first fills, but I mean, 3 month old, it's got color. It's quite crazy how fast it. These are full format barrels, not little ones. So
how close to? So you're on the island. How close to? I haven't brought up a map yet to see exactly where you are.
We're about 150 meters from the sea.
Yep.
Yeah, we are. What are we talking about? Yeah, so the inlet, the mangrove, the tide and the mangrove.
Yeah, true.
I'll pull up a map.
So if you pull up a map of where we are, you'll see a very large tidal inlet that comes right in. So if you find the Waiheke golf course.
That's right. Talk amongst yourselves while I find that.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
probably- it looks very like Sydney Airport.
It does, that one.
They're not. They're a little bit further away than that.
Here we go. Waiheke Island.
There it
There you
is.
go.
Yeah. All right. Let me zoom, and then I'll take a screenshot, and I'll put that up for everyone to play along at home.
So our particular area where the two barrel stores and where this was stored is literally over the road. There's tidal mangroves on the other side of the road. And this particular whiskey was stored in the vineyard in Mudbrick Vineyard in a winemaking facility. And so I don't know how much influence that actually has on the barrels or the casks, really. It doesn't taste that different to the stuff that we've stored in the other barrel house that's a little bit further away from the sea. So, yeah, I don't know how much in reality that affects this whiskey. It's only been in the barrel 5 years. It's much more influenced, I think, by the fact that this is a saltwater bog peat. Yeah. So
there we go. So smack in the middle there is
and you can see that inlet with the mangroves. That's where we are, right there.
right. Yep. Okay.
And then we've got Tangy Beach, which is about 500 meters to a cave as a crow flies on the other side of us there.
So there's not a lot going on the island there.
Yeah. So
it's
in context,
fairly small.
Yeah. So in context, for those that don't know, down the bottom of the page, that's mainland New Zealand, and Auckland. Auckland would be to the left of the screen.
Yeah.
And it's a 40-minute ferry ride across.
40 minutes on the ferry. That's right, to the island. Yeah, the commuter ferries go in the morning, sort of half hourly to hourly, and then.
Right. So yeah, actually, looking at that, so then there is another island further over there as well.
There's a bunch of Gulf. Yeah.
That's Coromandel Peninsula.
Right.
It's to the right, yeah.
To the right, yeah. I was going to try and bring up another bigger map just to put it in context for everyone. We did have a comment just come in as well. Whiskey and golf. What more could you ask for?
Yeah, well, I don't know. I'm going to do some research because I think we might be the closest. I mean, you could drive a ball from here to it's just literally across the road.
Yeah, right. My dad would love it. There we go. So there's a zoomed out view where we can see just the edge of the peninsula on the right, Auckland to the left, and you're smack in the middle there.
Yeah, absolutely. And that little inlet that's sort of I don't know 7 o'clock as we're looking at it, or maybe 8 o'clock. That comes right up in. That's tidal, full of mangroves, and the sea comes right up there, and it blows westerly, so that blows the salty air straight in the guts. But again, it'll be interesting to see how much influence that had on a barrel.
Well, it definitely has influence on the rainwater.
Definitely has influence on the rainwater, which this is all made out of. This is made of rainwater.
Yeah, right. Okay. John, I'd ask how the fishing is, but you guys can't agree where the sea is. It's the blue bit.
My wife.
Well, there's two. We saw the map. There's two there.
She was thinking, I think, of Tangy Beach, which is about 1 kilometre away. But I was thinking of the sea that comes.
Fishing is great, by the way.
Yeah.
Excellent. I mean, that's golf is all about drinking either before and or after, and with your little hip flask during as well. And I guess that's what fishing is too, isn't it?
Pretty much.
Absolutely.
Let's change the subject a bit. Talk about the tourism side of it. So you've invested quite heavily with the bar and the restaurant and everything, adjunct to the distillery. So tourism, what is tourism like on Waiheke Island nowadays?
It's great. Yeah, it's fantastic. I mean, lots of Australian tourists. Thank you for coming over. Lots of American tourists.
I think the restaurant was full of Australians today. They were we're having a lot of Australian visitors, which is fantastic. and then Americans are picking up. But like until July last year, there were no tourists really. So we don't really have anything to kind of look back on and compare year on year. So we're learning as we go. And we just thought we'd have a go. And hopefully come.
But yeah, it's the tourists. We haven't really launched tours at the distillery yet. There we do tastings and impromptu tours when people want to come and look around, but we're about to launch this winter formal tours of the distillery with tastings and master classes, and we've just released our first 20 private casks. We've never sold casks before, so these things for us are all relatively new, we're sort of like finding our way as to what's the right thing to do, but the interest is huge, which is great. And that offsets the added cost of bringing, it's $50 to bring a bourbon barrel from, bring a Tennessee whiskey barrel, I should say, before people pick me up on that, from Tennessee, Lynchburg to Auckland, and about another $50 to get it from Auckland to Waiheke, which is only about 50 miles. So that's the sort of bullshit we have to put up with. It's we pay about $3,000 a ton for peated barley, and then about another $400 to get that ton here. So our overheads are very high, but then we kind of try and balance that out with, the sales from people visiting the distillery and buying from the shop. And so that's the idea around it, is to create something that people can come to, as well as a full, proper operational distillery.
Now, we always have the conversation here. It's obviously a big hot button topic for Australian distillers, the excise. So we're over $100, well over $100 a litre now. $101 a litre.
Thanks to the Australian government.
Yes. Thank you, ATO.
Yeah.
Now, looking at the customs.gov.nz, per litre of alcohol from 1st July 2023 is $35. Is that right?
No.
I'm looking at the wrong fucking thing.
You're looking at the wrong thing. Yeah, we're about 63.5, I think. I can't remember. It may have just gone up. Bucks per litre of alcohol.
Okay, there we go. Here, this one. So the new 64.57.
There you go. It's gone up
a bit better. Yeah. Okay, sure.
So that's where we are. We've got no tax relief though, so there's none of the 350k's worth of tax relief or anything at all. So it's just straight up. Doesn't matter whether you make 1 litre or 10,000 litres a day. It's just straight excise. So definitely less than you guys. I mean, it's probably going to go up again. The signalling from the government is going to go up again. There's no support or help from. Sorry, someone's saying something on the screen. NZ third highest
after Ireland.
There you go. It's tricky. It's obviously not as hard as you guys, but that's pretty punishing. But yeah.
So between the high excise and then for yourselves specifically, the transport costs of getting the ingredients and the barrels, all that combined surprises me that you're at such a price point that feels low for the size of the product, the quality of the product, and the quality of the packaging.
Probably comes down to
how the fuck you doing that?
I mean, so Will Pitchforth, who's been really fantastic at helping us with our releases and stuff. I mean, he says the same thing. I think that the problem is that New Zealand whiskey, and we've got a little bit of a job to do with New Zealand whiskey. That Australian whiskey has moved on and moved past that. So I'm putting my glasses on to read what's on the screen because I can't really see what it says. And our job is to try and get New Zealand whiskey in the hands of people and turn it into a thing. Australian whiskey is already a thing. Tasmanian whiskey is a thing. New Zealand whiskey is, we're one of the oldest established distilleries in the country, and no one's ever heard of it. So, I mean, we've got quite a job to do, and I think one of the problems is putting overpriced juice. It's not going to appeal to people at that sort of price point. People might try it and hopefully might buy another bottle of it. And so we were quite conscious of that when we released our first few releases, that we were going to try and get as much our whiskey into people's hands as possible. And we told them that, and we said, look, we're kind of giving it away really, but we want you to drink it. And it's not going to be at this price forever, but we really want you to drink it. We want to let you know what you think of it. And it was more important for us that people would buy it and drink it and like it, than it was for us at that stage to be looking at our COGS. We're still doing okay, even at that price point. A lot of the time, because of we've got very, very efficient production sustainability and stuff like that, which we can talk about. But with the increased price in wood, with the increased price in grain, with the increased price in power, there's only one way that our prices can go, and that's north, unfortunately.
Yeah, it is a constant balance, isn't it?
Correct. Yeah. But I mean, there's no point pricing yourself at the market, especially when people have got well-established things they like Rose's analogy of going to the takeaway. If we're going to try and tempt you into a number 47, the duck chow mein or whatever instead of your chicken, then we've got to. There's no point making it $100 more than what you're used to. Otherwise, you're just not going to go there. So that was a real conscious decision for us.
So I've poured out the
3, which is
the Ceres
series.
Ceres 1.
Ceres.
Yeah, Ceres 1. Ceres 1. Yeah.
Ceres 1. Yep.
Yeah.
So I poured that one out.
Yeah. So Ceres has got a great story behind it, so we can talk about that. This is for you guys. This one. This has got an Australian theme.
You've gone the Apera.
Yeah.
Oh, that's rich. Very.
Knows that for a while.
Yeah, this nosing it is lovely. I reckon leaving just a dribble in the bottom of the glass and coming back to it tomorrow, the glass will smell absolutely divine.
One fruity glass.
I just enjoy doing that because it gives you something to wake up to.
Oh, wow.
This is when you're licking your tongue down the bottom of the Glencairn.
By the side of the bed, leave it just sitting there.
Yeah. So we've got another lightly peated.
Yeah.
In American oak that have been shaved, toasted, and recharred, finished in Pedro Jimenez Apera.
Yeah.
From develop the glazed orange peel, citrus, spiced apple, and sandalwood notes.
So that means you've recast out of Apera into the PX.
Otherwise, no. It's
Other way around.
It's a PX Apera. It's a AP John cask.
Right.
So we put it in bourbon to start off with. So basically, this is the moss that's then spent an extra year in the Apera cask. Right. So it's finished in that Apera cask. So the barrel sequence is the American oak STR followed by the Apera. So basically a similar base spirit as the moss, just slightly different barrel sequence. And a year longer. But it is
oily and fruitcake and
on our whiskey, but every single whiskey has the distill date and the bottle date on that. So if you can kind of do single digit math, you should be able to work out the age of all of our whiskey.
Too late for math.
The
distilled 2016.
yeah,
From what I can see on the website, bottled 2022, non-chill filtered, and that's almost like a Christmas cake.
Yeah,
Rich,
it's got
fruity,
lots of
orangey.
citrus.
butterscotch, raisins, fruitcake.
Yeah,
subtle
oily, but very, very, very smooth. A slight, it is, yeah, lightly peat and slightly briny, slightly salty.
Yeah, the same DNA as the moss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just
got
a different expression of it.
Slight uptick on it though.
Well, it is a slightly higher ABV, isn't it? So
It's 47.
from the
No. I think it's down actually. I think
down. Yes. So the
First one is down,
Sweetwater
I
was at 41.
40, Sweetwater 41. I think the Ceres one's 42 from memory. I have to look on
42. Yeah, and the Moss is 44.
Yeah. And and the reason for that, and a lot of people ask why that is, and the peat is so hard to tease out. And when we do our bottling sequence, I mean, some of ours, like Cantankerous is at 48, and when we look at, we basically line them all up at half percentage point differences, and do double blinds. There'll be 4 of us go through, do a tasting panel, taste them at different strengths, and we just literally bottle them at what we think drinks best. We know geeks like the 46, and Peter Port's released at 46, and Dyad Chardonnay's released at 46, and so the Dyads are up there. But again, that speaking to that New Zealand whiskey story is that we've got to release whiskies in the market which are approachable. Cardrona, which make fantastic whiskey down in the South Island, one of their criticisms, I guess, was, and their whiskey's brilliant, is that they release it at high ABV, and a lot of people just pour it and drink it, not understanding, that it was at high ABV. And so for us, because we got people coming on site, drinking, tasting, in the restaurant and the bar and stuff, we decided consciously to release our first releases at relatively low ABV. Knowing that the geeks had something to fall back on later on. And when we actually released our tasting pack first, Avengers of New Zealand Peat, which had the new make, the Moss, the Ceres 1, and the Bog Monster, which is up at 46%. So people can see that we can release a range of different stuff, but we were quite conscious of that.
I think it also stems a bit again from Patrick, who, he wants to present something that, how he wants you to drink it. And I think that probably comes from his winemaking background. And you can see some of the stuff that comes through when he wants everything to sell out as well, like vintage. He just wants it all gone before he releases something else. And so, he has an approach to things. So I think that it was very important to him that he presented the whiskey how he felt it drinks best.
Yeah, I generally don't add water. I don't use ice. I go neat. I figure the way that it's been bottled is how it was intended to be consumed and drunk. So the point that you're bottling it at, and the point that he's said, all right, that's where it is and that's where it has to be. Spot on. Absolutely. Very, very lovely.
Very, very approachable, and also just great depth of flavor.
So
Thank you.
Thank you.
What's your? So you've only been at it really as a full business for a handful of years. what's been your biggest learning or biggest takeaway in that time? Where
Oh,
wish we made more whiskey early on.
okay.
Having only about 100 casks, from the previous, 10 years for us was, with all this experimentation and messing around. Backing yourself would have been, but you just don't know. I guess there's no point looking back like that because there's nothing you can do about it. You can learn from it, which is now we've turned on our new machine. It's like make as much whiskey as we can afford to right now, because we know we're going to be having the same conversation in another 5-10 years time. Wish we'd made more, when we could. So I think for me, that's the biggest learning from it all. And we're just lucky that the quality of the grain from Gladfields, and we've had Pat, who's a fantastic craftsman. We started making. I haven't made whiskey for a number of years now. I mean, I tool around and get in there and get in the way. But really, when we transitioned to having someone that really knew what they were doing, that was the thing that we really turned the corner. 2014 is when that really started. I
think he's underplaying himself a little bit there, because we've worked with Pat very closely, and Mark's pretty much single-handedly built this distillery, including designing the wireframes that run the whole operating system. And
should we go and have a tour? Do you want to go and have a look?
Yeah, I was about to say, absolutely. That's probably the perfect lead-in for a tour, to show us your handiwork
While we're drinking.
And we'll take.
While we're drinking, So I've poured out the peat and port.
Poured out the peat and port. Fantastic. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to put my glasses on. So when you get a chance to come and visit us here in the so what I might see if I can switch I wonder if I can switch my camera around. Can I do that? Probably not. I think it's I don't know if I can.
If you're on an iPad,
I'll take the tour.
So this is exit through the gift shop. So when you come,
nice.
Merch, all the whiskey lined up, and then this is our tasting bar. This is the Boilermaker. So designed for tasting. There's the dog crashed out. Won't trip over.
How many people can you hold in there?
So in here we can roughly about 25 at a time comfortably in the wee bar, and then this is the barrel room, private cask room, tasting space. So we can get about 100 standing and around about 60 seated in here,
Nice.
and private casks in here. So our storage is off site, and then there's a little private area upstairs as well. When we were designing this distillery, for us on the island, it's very expensive to build, so space was a bit of a premium. So we've made a relatively compact space coming up the gantry, and so see if I can get that a bit better view here.
Very shiny and nice and clean. Gorgeous hopper there.
So we've got we've got our. Do you want to come up, Rosie? We've got our. No, it's all good. 3,000 litre wash still, which is on the right, which is again designed for maximum peat, so very little reflux going on there. And downsloping line arm. I'm going to stand over by the spirit safe there.
He wants you to stand here. I'm not quite sure.
Well, so you get some idea of how they are. So and then, we're safe. And then the condensers are outside, so they go outside the building.
Okay.
And that's for passive cooling.
Right.
And then our spirit still, which is our third iteration of our geodesic shaped stills. So that is 2,800 liters. So we can do a 1-to-1 or a 2-to-1. And again, quite a high neck, downsloping line arm, but running on steam. So we might be able to get a little peep inside at the coils in that bad boy. I don't know if we can see in here. Let's have a look. Can see that? No, maybe yes. No.
Yeah,
That's cool.
Yeah.
All right.
So this thing runs on electric-fired steam, which we can talk about in a minute.
It's a shame you can't smell it. It smells so good in here.
Oh yeah.
It's fully automated, so it runs on a homemade PLC system, which essentially we make the wash semi-automated, so we can get a very, very consistent wash. It's a half-ton mash and 72-hour ferment, and we have both a mash tun and a lauter tun, and then we auto charge the stills, and the computer also controls the fermentation tank. So we have the cellars fully controlled, 6 washbacks, 3,000 liters each. So we can do 6,000 liters a day. So there's the cellar with the washbacks. So they're again all piped into the electronic system, and that basically controls temperature, stops them fermenting, over fermenting. This is a very homemade electronic control system, so we built all this ourselves. So this is a fully digital control system that runs the whole system itself. This is, for anyone who's from Melbourne, this is the old colonial brew house mash tun, 4,000 litre mash tun. We brought over from Melbourne, and a lauter tun. So we have a semi-lauter, 2 separate, so we can do a second mash and be lautering and do 2 mashes in a day very efficiently.
You've managed to cram an awful lot into a small space there.
Well,
is that sort of gantry system that I don't think I've seen that sort of a system anywhere. I don't know if anybody who's watching has seen that before, but I certainly haven't seen it. Yeah.
What, Australia?
In Australia, yeah.
I think Carlington Mill.
Carlington,
right.
I think they've got something along those lines.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, fantastic utilization of space.
Yeah,
Wow.
And you put all that together yourself.
Yeah, we've this is the most interesting part, maybe, is the electric-fired steam boilers. So so these are our 3 boilers, and where's so you can see how tiny they are. So they're generating 3/4 of a ton of steam. So they're 360 kilowatts of power, and they all have their own individual PLC, so they all monitor themselves and switch on and off.
Wow.
Very, very efficient way of running, generating steam. Comes through common header manifold system here, and then off to the consumers. We've got 3 spirit recovery tanks. We've got, that's our low wines tank, which is 1,200 liters, heads and tails tank, and then final spirit tank here with, and then we go into IBCs initially, and out onto the wet deck outside. So what you can't see outside is our barreling and filling stations outside, grain mill,
It's actually bigger out there than it is in here, and it's all undercover, but it's dark.
All right. Wow.
And then we're using hot water heat recovery from the stills. So all the spent pot ale and stuff gets recovered, put through this heat exchanger to preheat the next run. So pretty efficient use of energy.
Yeah. Wow. So how do you, being on the island, how do you power all of this?
So we've got our own dedicated transformer, and so that's 52 kVA transformer, I think, and powers everything we need.
Yeah, wow.
So we do a little deal with Vector, but the electricity bill's a bit frightening.
Yeah. I just got my home bill, and that was terrifying. But
so it uses around about $500 of electricity per single mash, ferment, wash, and spirit run. So so for $500 for 200 Ola of alcohol.
We're coming back.
Yeah, wow. That's a amazing space. You've obviously put a lot of thought, time, and effort into designing and building. It's a work of art. Beautiful. And your still, your geodesic still there with the
like I said, that's kind of a whole another episode. But briefly, when we wanted to make the second still, the still before this, the one that made all this whiskey that you're drinking right now, there's no copper works in New Zealand, so and we weren't quite ready to have those stills were made by the Speyside Copper Works in Elgin, and they stand about 8 meters tall, so it was quite a lot of logistics to get them made to our exact specifications, and B, to get them shipped from Scotland to Waiheke Island. But in the first instance, we had to work out how to make a still shape out of sheet copper. So a friend of ours who's also involved in the business, and in fact did all the programming that sits behind the screens that Mark just showed you, is a absolute genius, mad ex-NASA scientist. He lives in San Francisco, and he came up with this very old, 1600s design of this geodesic shape. And the more we looked into it, we thought he was mad, but the more we looked into it, we actually discovered that the increase in copper contact that you get from the multiple flat panels is actually far greater than you get from a curve. So and we worked out that we could cut this sheet into circles, and then score the circles into a triangle, fold those, and then join them together like some mad Christmas decoration. Then we could kind of get a ball. So we got two halves of a ball. That's all on our website actually, on blogs. But so we got two halves of a ball, but then we had to get them welded, which copper welding is another whole thing to try and find. But we found that. So these guys cut 126 circles, scored them and bent them, and numbered all the. No, they didn't bend them. They just numbered them. We had to bend them, and they numbered each one. But they got the numbering wrong. So we.
This is the water. They cut them at the water jet place for us, and they got the numbering system wrong. So when we got it back and put them all together, they're all asked about face.
We had to lay out 120 circles on the floor and then work out how the hell they went together.
Yeah. Anyway, that was the first still we built, Vitriol 1.
So that was that.
Yeah. But all the whiskey you're tasting is made in those geodesic stills, and you get almost double the surface area from those panels than you would do for the same curve. So than you would do from an oblate sphere.
So then we just got superstitious, a little bit like my takeaway analogy. We thought, well, that made really good whiskey, so we had to talk to Gatti in Scotland, who thought we were crazy, and we described what we wanted, but they came to the party. They're amazing.
Yeah.
And they're in fact making stills for all the cool dudes now.
You obviously led the charge there. So we've got Lee White, who's actually coming to see you in about 4 weeks' time.
Hooray! Come and see us, Lee.
Going all the way from Tassie over to see you. A few other comments come in. We've got Faze. Lovely stills. Your spirit still reminds me of Bunnahubbins.
That's a good compliment.
Yeah. So then we've got hold on. That's with the Gantry, Callington,
Archie Rose, of course,
and Archie Rose. Yep. And also can confirm that it gets very hot upstairs.
It gets really hot. Is that Mark Teague? Is it? Yeah. It gets really yeah. How do you go on the peat and port? Have you tasted it yet?
Oh yes, absolutely, lovely. It's very rich for. So typically, my taste is at the unpeated or the lightly peated end, and generally for me, a port is a bit too rich for my palate. But you've got me again in that
It's the peat.
it's the peat. It's balanced out the port. It's balanced out the port enough that it's now very approachable for me and very light and very, very easy to drink.
Your whiskies have got a meatiness about them. Does anyone describe it that way?
No, not till right now.
No, I know.
Was it meaty as in chewy or meaty as in
Meaty.
umami?
No, it's
Yeah, it's dense. It's kind of got an oiliness or a thickness to it. Yeah, I think
there's a viscosity to it. Yeah.
And it comes back to what I said about the peat is just giving it structure. It's
not just peat for the sake of peat.
In this case,
46.
Yeah.
See, I wouldn't have guessed that. It's so light and approachable that even at 46, it doesn't feel like.
Every one of them is so approachable, so
Very,
easy.
that's right. They're
Very
different. They're
light.
not watery. They've all got their own great taste.
There's structure and
enough
oomph to
detail
them
to it.
without being a kick in the teeth.
Yeah, exactly.
So you
Very
set the bar really high with your early releases. Now what happens?
Yeah, where do you go from here?
How do you back that up?
Yeah.
We released a couple of single casks, Bog Monster and Cantankerous, which are our special circumstances, our black labels. And we picked up the two trophies the last 2 years for those. And I think we have settled on, I mean, Ro and I will argue about this till the cows come home, but I mean, I think that the peat is so integral to our story. It's now the thing is to try and make a whiskey that we can get at a good price point where we can get this story out to the world. That's the plan. So the plan is to create, the thing is we've got so many, I mean, we haven't even tried the Dyad Chardonnay because we were messing around with so many different varieties of whiskey to see what they were going to do and then release them to people, get the feedback from them. But I think the direction is definitely peat. It's not in your face peat, but it's New Zealand peat, provides that structure. It's bourbon cask to start off with, which is so reliable. And it's really just increasing the volume, which is what we've done with this new distillery. So we run 4 days a week at the moment, and we're just trying to fill as many casks as we can so we can come around to that 5-year point when we can start putting it in bottle and getting it out there. So really that's what's next for us. We do have a lot of really exciting stuff that we've made that we will be releasing over the next few years onto the Australian market and New Zealand market. That we've got a triple distilled. We have a blend, which is really exciting. We've made a bourbon, which we can't call bourbon. We've made an American style whiskey, 51% corn, 28% rye, so a high rye.
Okay.
Whiskey,
which presents its own challenges, doesn't it? Working with rye.
Yeah, and trying to stir and mash. Yeah, well, the whole thing. Yeah, but it's been pretty rewarding working with some other grains and trying those. So until our juice from this new distillery hits the market, there's quite a few more exciting things that we've got waiting to release over the next few years. Bunch more single cask stuff.
I think there's one other. You said before, what is another like learning or something that we've had, and one thing I think is that confidence, that like because Pat was a winemaker, I think I was a bit not nervous, but I didn't realize that was a thing. It's actually quite a common thing, and also the I think we've got a really huge benefit being here on Waiheke Island with access to wine casks. And when I say wine casks, I mean, totally fresh wine casks. And Mark just mentioned the Diet Chardonnay. Diet is mother-daughter, so that's we use Diet for our wine cask finish ranges. And Diet Chardonnay is the one when Dave Broom came to visit last time. That's the one that he chose to take home with him. It's a really interesting finish. I know Starwood Carley's they've recently done a Chardonnay finish as well. But that Chardonnay was like emptied and bottled, and it was a on the lees Chardonnay. And as soon as that was bottled, we can throw new make into it. It hasn't travelled any distance whatsoever. It hasn't been sulfured, so these fresh, amazing wine casks are actually something that's a real benefit, and it is something that we're able to benefit from. And the port, when we call it peat and port, that port, Pat made that port, and he made it here on the island. And after he'd aged that, he was able to fill that cask straight away. So, I think there's some advantages there that we've got that I didn't really realize were really unique and a positive. So that's one.
Yeah, it's a wet fill. So yeah, we had to make the port because there's no New Zealand port. We wanted to use a New Zealand port cask. There isn't any anymore.
With our tax system, there's no fortified wine industry in New Zealand at all.
Yeah, right. Okay.
So we had to make the port first. So it's a Petit Verdot grape. We distilled it in our old stills, fortified the wine, stayed in there for 4 years, got the casks back. That was the deal. We'll make you the port. We got the casks back. And then it'd been in bourbon for 4 years and then into the port for another year. So yeah, quite good fun. Can't do that on scale because there's no port industry, nor is a sherry industry in New Zealand. So, we look to Australia for those casks.
Well, we're happy to help. Another comment coming from Whiskey is My Jam. So for those that are keen, malt traders in Queensland have the Waiheke, can't even pronounce it now, Waiheke Whisky in store and online right now. So
Smiley face emoji.
And a party emoji. So buy from there or buy direct.
I think it might not be online right now. It might be online tomorrow, but I might be wrong.
You have to go and check.
Sorry, Mark. Maybe
Anyway.
it is.
Yeah, but Mark,
Well,
Mark
you can.
than us.
But it definitely arrived today, so I guess it's
Excellent.
And this is a one-off shipment because we just don't have the stock, so it's not something that will be. It won't happen again for a while.
Well, this whiskey,
So getting quick then is what you're saying.
Well, I'm just saying it is a one-off shipment. Sadly, so it won't be in your local.
Dan Murphy's or whatever. Yeah, no, I mean, all this whiskey is only, maybe 1,000, 2,000 bottles at a run, the Sweetwater. So, yeah, we the only place we've exported to is Australia, which is, would be a great market for us and makes sense to go there first rather than anywhere else. So that's our first foray into export. And thanks, Mark, for, yeah, he's looking at it right now.
Okay, right. I'm looking at it right now. I'm going to try and find a direct link to post up for people.
That's really kind of you.
If I can find it there. I mean, if we can make it sell out for you, then that'd be wonderful.
Yeah.
Thanks very much indeed. I mean, the most important thing for us is that you try it, you like it, you enjoy it. We had a fantastic time at Tassie Whisky Week when we went over. We were really well looked after by Mark in particular, and the Overeems and Ali from Sullivan's and everyone that made us feel really at home. And we had a great time. And we extend that invite to anybody who wants to come to Waiheke, come and hang out. And we're always here kicking around, wanting to shoot the shit, as you'd say, and drink some whiskey and people around. So
a pilgrimage next time we're over that way.
Absolutely. So yes, I've just posted up a link, direct link to the search results. There are the 4 releases on there. So there is the Sweetwater, the Moss, the Chardonnay, and the Peat and Port up available for sale right now. So yeah, jump onto those before there's only
hard to sell out before tomorrow morning.
Yeah, there are only 45 in stock of the Sweetwater.
Wow.
And yeah, the Moss again 45. So yeah, limited numbers. Get in quick before they all disappear.
And you've put the link up.
I have put the link up into the chat. Absolutely.
Yeah, right.
Now,
thanks.
There were some comments that came in that we've missed.
There's a lot of comments.
There were a lot of comments tonight, which is awesome. Going all the way back to your non-chill filtering, I think it was. Ian Bruce brings up the question: does removing the lipids reduce or affect the taste?
Yeah, well,
It
can do, and that's why we try not to remove the lipids. So it's a bit of a balancing act. It's not just the lipids that are causing us problems, but I think so we chose to. That's why we haven't fully non-chill filtered. So we've removed maybe 50% of the flocking agent, but you're still going to get a little bit. But we did a lot of experimentation with it and took it to where we felt was.
We tried so many filters. We spent so much money on filters.
Yeah, we tried a lot of different filters. So we've got it to a point where we think it's a good. I mean, we're not exporting to China or Japan or the UK, so I mean, we're not worried about getting stuff sent back. The good thing is Australians particularly know, like Overeem and flock shots. I mean, people know and are enthusiastic about whiskey, know what it does, and that's why we didn't chill filter. And so we just want to try and get it to you as. But we did filter. We were getting a little bit of sedimentation and some other stuff happening in the low ABV stuff. So that's why we filtered those. The 46 and above basically is just filtered through a sock. I mean, it's not. There's nothing going on other than getting the bits of char and stuff out of the barrel and going on. So it's just it's really not chill filtered at all. Well, none of it's chill filtered, but there's hardly any filtering going on anything over 46.
Is that a used sock from the maltster?
Yeah. It's just
excellent.
That's how they get their special flavors.
There's a story. I'll tell you a quick story about that. When we first went to Dramfest, we snuck down there, and Crazy Eric, our American business partner, who's an interesting cat, we went down and he was under. We weren't exhibitors at Dramfest, so we weren't supposed to. We were just guests. And Eric kept saying, "I'm going to take some whiskey and give it to Dave Broom and Charlie McLean," and we were like, "Nah, you're not going to do that. We leave him alone." Anyway,
he had these bottles in his rucksack. He carries like this army, an old like genuine, one of those canvas army bags with the buckles on it, and his bag kept like clanking around as he was walking around Dramfest, and we were like, "Oh my god, can you stop with the clanking?" And so
Ricky gave him one of his hiking socks, and he put this bottle in this hiking sock and said, "Stop clanking around." Eric, he's got a Hawaiian shirt on, camo shorts, no shoes, long hair, weird beard, looks completely mad. Comes up to Dave Broom, stops him, says, "Hi, we're from Waiheke Whisky." Pulls his sock out of his bag, whiskey out of the sock, gives it to Dave Broom and says, "Taste this." So Dave Broom and says, "Oh, that's quite nice." And he goes, "Oh, you can keep it." And Dave Broom goes, "Oh, thank you very much." And Eric goes, "Oh, you can keep the sock as well." Chucks him the sock. So he's standing holding the sock and the whiskey, and then Eric just runs off into the crowd while we're all standing there. Oh my God. What fucking...
They put you on the map.
We are going to release a whiskey in a sock one day. That's going to be a special Dave Broom release in a knitted Waiheke Whisky sock. But it's filtered through a sock filter, like just a sort of like a 2-3 micron filter.
Also, working down the list, we didn't get to again. And I'm sorry, Ian, I missed most of your comments. Usually hip flask is needed on the Scottish golf and fishing courses to keep you warm. Haven't been to Scotland, but I'm going to agree with that. Working down the list. All right, here we go. So, shit, I'm not sure what we were talking about again. Ian, I'm so sorry that I missed your comments. Is there a noticeable change to the grain depending on the time that it's been harvested?
Yield and flavour.
No to flavour, yes to friability. I mean, again, flavour, yeah. I mean, it's a difficult one. I mean, we're making a lot of juice at the moment. The main thing we see is slight change in, when we look at the COA, we're looking at slight change in humidity, in particular, and friability. So that's probably the thing that changes the most within the malt that we see.
But Gladfield's run an extremely professional operation. What they have got down there is unbelievable. They're sending hundreds and thousands of tons of grain around the world now. So
mostly for the craft brewing industry. So they're pretty tight on a lot of that stuff. So Ian, I mean, we haven't noticed it, but we probably haven't looked for it, to be honest. The things that we notice are the things that we see immediately as we're milling in, looking at mill gaps and looking at our sieves and looking at the consistency of our mill, flour ratio to husk to cracks.
Pat probably is better.
So, but Pat hasn't mentioned it to me, so no is the answer.
Yeah, right. So your Spirit Safe is awesome. Not very popular in Tas, and I think only Callington Mill has one. What is a Spirit Safe?
It's a
shiny
bauble.
thing. It's a shiny thing. Completely unnecessary.
Right.
To attract whiskey geeks.
Reasonably expensive.
Yeah, no. So it's a switch. So basically,
is that one solid gold?
Solid gold. Yeah. No, I think maybe just gold plated. I think it's about the right price to be solid gold. A Spirit Safe is
it's a switch.
Yeah, it's basically
big handle.
It's an artifact left over from the day when the only person that was supposed to have the key to that would be the taxman, right? So the idea is it's locked. You can't get into the flow of whiskey to steal whiskey or pull whiskey out of the flow of whiskey. It's locked. It's safe, and it's a means of testing the whiskey. So that you'll see that they have the little handles on it. It fills up the little beakers which have floating in them hygrometers. So you can look at, and they've got thermometers too. So you look at the temperature and the alcohol content of your whiskey and see where to make your cuts. Nowadays, if we want to test it, we open the lid and put the Anton Par in and see where we're at. But in the old days, that was all under lock and key. So you can do that. And the other thing it does is it has a handler which lets us select, make the heads and tails cuts. Mm-hmm. So on the spirit side, so on the wash side, essentially it comes straight out into the bowl and down into the low wines receiver, and that's got a thermometer and a hygrometer in it that tells you when we're down to about 1% alcohol, and then we're going to cut the run. Whereas on the spirit side, it's got two bowls. One's taking the heads and tails, and the other one's taking the hearts cut. And again, both with hygrometers and temperatures, and so we can tell when to take the cuts.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and of course they're different depending whether it's a peated run or a non-peated run. But in reality, we do a bunch of stuff other than use those. We use them for the wash run, but also when we're making our cuts, we're tasting, we're taking samples off the whole time. We're using the Anton Par. We've got very digital temperature sensors, as well as the old traditional thermometers. The Spirit Safe's actually got digital PTU hundreds in them, and there's a feedback loop to the PLC that lets us control the amount of steam that we've got going in the boil to the temperature. You control the water flow through the condensers, the steam in the boil, to get the temperature of the spirit to the correct temperature, about 21, 22 degrees. So we keep that static, and that lets us then really look at our ABV very, very carefully. So
and stepping up to the new volume, like we needed confidence about those cuts. It's so important. So that's one of the reasons we had Sir Master Distiller Alan Winchester come and stay with us and commission the stills with us, and he helped us. He bought like a library of cuts and helped us to kind of craft those cuts. Yeah,
right. Wow. Okay, so again, looking at the stills, Ian, again, recognize stills from Dave Broom's article in the Whiskey Manual. I'll have to Google that article and have a look.
Hopefully Ian's still with us, since you ignored him all night.
He's probably given up and gone home.
It's like, buggy you.
I'm sorry.
I'm
sorry, Ian.
It's normally
We were too busy talking.
I know. Just rapid fire. They're coming in. I can't keep up.
Come and see us, Ian.
There
you go, Ian. Hop on over the ditch. There he is. He's still here. Okay, so another comment that's come in from Fades. As I feel peating the malt to your specification.
No, I mean they're peating. I mean our specification was. I mean yes, if our specification was make it as peaty as you can. So when they started, it was relatively light, and we've just been on to Doug and Gabby. Just make it more peat, more peat, more peat, more peat. But I mean, I think that the specification that we were after was as much peat as we can, because we can always dial that back, both in if we're mixing peated, non-peated grain in our mash bill, but
which
also
is what we did for
Moss, for example. And so if we can get that, we wanted that. And I guess we were looking for, when we started, we were looking for something that we knew, right? We were looking for peat as we knew it. But on our adventures in New Zealand peat, which we released our first little tasting packets, the byline was, it's peat, but not as you know it, Jim. Because we were trying to find that Lefroy, Lagavulin, Ardbeg peat that just wasn't there, because that's not what it is. And I think in the early days, we were really pushing Gladfields for more and more and more peat, when we didn't really understand that it wasn't that kind of thing. And the smoke was never going to be there, because it just isn't in the peat when you burn it.
And we also weren't after, though, I think that's important, we weren't after smoke, like which there's a lot more whiskies now that are kind of smoked or have that kind of smoked malt, but we didn't want just smoke.
I mean, my problem is that Lagavulin 16 is probably my favorite whiskey of all time, and I keep this. That's my number 43. That's my chicken chow mein that I keep going back to every single time. And so, I think deep down inside, I was looking for something like that, which we were never going to get from the peat. What's really interesting is now we've got our wash still, which is a little bit of a homage to Lagavulin wash still. It's very, very. It's got is that our peated whiskey and peated new make now is a lot more peaty than our previous peated new make in our other stills. So we've really built this distillery for peat, minimum reflux, fast still run, big copper contact, really oily, really meaty stuff coming out, a little bit sulfurous, quite different than what we were making before. So and it's really exciting. So yeah, I think
Having said that, we're currently doing non-peat.
I know, because Ro doesn't like peat, but I love peat. But we're currently doing non-peat. So our mash bill will probably be around about 30% non-peated, 70% peated over the year.
Well, it's easy to put peat into unpeated, but it's quite hard to take peat out of peated.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, and Ian says he definitely will visit. First heard through Columairs and the One Nation Under Whiskey podcast. So there you go. Somebody else dropping in to see you, hopefully soon. Look, we've kept you up probably well past your bedtime.
About 6:45 maybe.
He doesn't have to go back to the mainland tonight, though. So
No, we live here. We're home.
Yeah.
We're only about 10 minutes away from the distillery to home, so it's easy. It's an easy run. For
Wonderful.
Us. Hey,
Well,
thanks,
but
guys.
Thank you so much
Yeah.
for joining us. Thank you again for the samples. They were really, really lovely, and I definitely urge everyone to jump on to the malt traders so you can get them locally, or just pay the international freight and get it internationally. But definitely grab a couple of bottles because it is really, really lovely spirit. Well done, and thank you for joining us. I'm going to put up the website into the chat and, of course, on the screen for those that want to eyeball it. And yeah, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you very much.
thank you.
Very,
Cheers,
very
guys.
informative.
Thank you.
Good night.
Cheers. Stick around. I'm going to play the outro with our sponsors. I do need to update that so that the people who are listening
Do a
after the
voiceover,
fact
yeah.
can actually hear who our sponsors are. But yeah, very, very, very quickly, we've got oh crap, hold on. Now I'm not even doing it properly. There we go. So very, very quickly, we've got the Australian Appreciation Society.
I guess.
I'm going to be working with Ben at the Easter show again this year.
Well,
So
Dan and up.
come and see me at the Easter show. We've got Saber Glass. We've got Voyager Craft Malt, Mogwai Labs for all your yeasty needs. Wyandotte Cooperage. We haven't. Is he still over in Fiji?
No, he's well back. He's
He's going backwards, forwards all
he's
the time.
in the Barossa. He's putting barrels together.
Andrew, hello. The Dubbo Winter Whiskey Festival
Coming up.
coming up.
Coming up
It's
middle of the
almost
year.
coming up to
Yeah,
winter.
no, they're a good one for you guys to come and visit.
Mm,
You would.
Yeah.
That sounds
Lovely.
good.
Fantastic.
come on over. And
Outback
Long
Australia.
Rays. Awesome mixes. I've only got one bottle of dark soda left.
I'll fix
I
you.
know.
Excellent.
Oh, you got hold of it,
Tonics and dark sodas
Yep.
and other items. Yeah.
I generally don't like a whiskey
Oh,
mixer,
wouldn't
but
mind
I
being
fucking
fixed up
love the
as well,
dark
right?
soda.
Got one case left.
Oh, one case left.
Cool. So thank you all for joining us. We'll be back in 2
2
weeks
Two
with
weeks.
someone.
Tria
Someone-
Prima.
Tria Prima.
Trey Prima. It's
Paul
already
Shandy.
it is already up on the Facebook and yeah.
Vaguely
So
organised so far this year.
fuck me, Jesus! It only took us 3 years to get that far.
Yeah. Might be speaking too soon.
Thank you for joining us. Please like and subscribe, all those things, and we'll catch you in 2 weeks. Awesome. Cheers.
Thank you much.
Cheers.